Yep, you know what time it is, man. This is, of course, your favorite channel, man, CTB. This is, of course, Chin Tuck Boxing. I'm your boy, Jay Slay. So what up to him, man?
What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in.
Most definitely. Tune into a segment we call here, Chin Check. So we rock you guys' chin with boxing news, boxing information, boxing rumors. And sometimes we put some money in you guys' pockets by giving you the odds of the fight. But today we kind of got some sources news. I don't really put too many I don't put too much confidence in ESPN when it comes to boxing news, but they come out with a report again about the Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence fight. But this one might be a little different because if you look and see how PBC been moving, it might be kind of on to something. This is the only one I can actually say the proof is actually in the pudding with this one when it comes to ESPN. They're reporting that the Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence negotiations may have hit a snag a little bit. They're saying Terrence Crawford has agreed to the preliminaries, like the price point, the no money up front, it was 35-65 cut, but he wants transparency when it comes to pay-per-view sales and control of course, some of the selling and buying and selling that goes on in the fight. He wants some of the transparency, which is nothing wrong with it in my opinion. There's nothing wrong with wanting transparency, especially if you're not getting any upfront money. You want to make sure all your dollars is right. But that seemed to be the snag of what ESPN reported. So my boy Mon asked me a question earlier that I want to see what he had to say about it. Do you think the fight can still happen November 19th? Or you think this snag might be the snag that causes it to be pushed back to next year?
I think they down to the last week. I think, in my opinion, if it's nothing announced by next Friday, it's impossible to have that fight by November 19th. It's too big of a fight. Like you said, for a fight that magnitude, you're gonna have a promotional tour with like 4 or 5 cities. You go to Los Angeles, New York, definitely Texas, and probably Nebraska. But that's where you're from. You know, at least those 4 cities. And then you got the week of the fight. And, you know what I'm saying, with the press conference and the weigh-in. So that's another week. So you got a week for press conference, a week for leading up to the fight. So now you're down to 4 weeks in between. To focus on your training camp. I know they've been training and they've been looked to both be in great shape, but still to be able to get the most money you can get out of that fight, to secure the biggest bag, you need to have the time to promote the fight like it needs to be promoted.
Yeah, not only that, you need to have a proper training camp because you can't tell me that even though I know they stay in shape, you can't tell me that these guys are having a proper training camp with no contract being signed. You can risk an injury if you actually in training camp real hard. So you're not going to risk no injury for a fight that hasn't been signed yet, in my opinion. So yeah, you might be doing small things like calisthenics and, you know, jumping rope, hitting the bag, running. No, you can get injured doing that stuff too, to be honest. But you're not doing full sparring.
I was just about to say that even bringing in sparring partners, you're not going to pay to bring in guys that can be somewhat like Terrence Crawford or Errol Spence and pay them to be there with the hope of making a fight. Nobody's gonna pick money into something that is not been signed yet. It's just common sense.
Yeah, let's be real. Knock on wood. Let's be real. But Errol Spence got hurt in their training camp before his last fight, so you really don't want to risk, you know, something like an eye injury happening again to either fighter. You know what I'm saying? Or a cut. It could be something as small as a cut that can happen. They can postpone the fight anyway. So you don't want to risk doing that for a contract that hasn't been signed yet, in my opinion. So yeah, I agree with you, man. I'm still optimistic that the fight gonna happen. I kind of knew it wasn't gonna happen on the 19th once, like I said, once they didn't come to terms with ESPN, quote unquote, reported it the first time. I thought then it would have to been the real deal. It had to been coming out then that the fight was happening. It was like 3 weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago. If that was true then of course I was like, yeah, that's plenty of time. They can do everything. But now, like you said, it's 4 weeks. So training that's not feasible in my opinion. December might be sold up if Tank and Garcia fight. But if you PBC, do you push back the Tank Davis possible Garcia fight for this fight?
Yeah, I would, because I think it's a bigger fight, and I think that, like I said, Garcia and Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia, they're younger. You got plenty of time to make that huge fight, even if they hold off for another year or whatever. But like you said, Errol Spence been having health issues, and he's 32, I believe. Terrence Crawford just turned 35 this week. We don't need to prolong this fight anymore. Like I said, and these guys said they want to do things at 154. So, you know, it's holding up everybody. So for those guys, because of their age, we need to get that fight as soon as possible. Garcia and Tank Davis, I think it's 23 and 24 years old. 26 and 24.
Yeah. I think Tank 26.
In that range. Yeah, 26. And Ryan Garcia like 24. But we got plenty of time to make that fight. But I would like to see both. But yeah, if we can push that fight back and get Spence and Crawford in December, I'll be happy with that, because they're talking about January. But January to me is a horrible month to have a big fight in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. But this brings to my second point of the show on why I think this year it might be kind of fucked when it comes to Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence fighting. Even if they do push back Tank versus Garcia, I think Tank versus Garcia will probably be the better route to go, because if it's true that PBCs are having funding issues, then that press conference you're talking about, that 4-city press conference, and possibly want to do a world conference. You might want to do a world tour. You might want to go to the UK and promote. You know what I'm saying? Also, so if funding is short this year for that type of promotion, then it's kind of short to cram in. And really, we got 2 months left of this year after October, so it's kind of short time to cram in if you know what I'm saying, short on funding, in my opinion. I kind of believe they short on funding. Like I was telling you behind the scenes when it comes to how that market has been this year. If you look at PBC, how they've been moving since the summertime. I say since Errol Spence versus Ugas happened. If you watch how PBC been moving, they've been charging people a absorbent amount of money for fights that nobody asked for fights that really shouldn't even been on pay-per-view. Like my boy Mon said earlier behind the scenes, I forgot about this fight. He said, you remember Ortiz versus Areola was the first one they put that was on pay-per-view that had no business being pay-per-view. And then that fight was what, $50 or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. It
was like $50, I believe. And then you look at that fight. You look at the Tank Davis versus Rolly fight. That had no business being pay-per-view. That was like $65. Coming up soon, you got the Wilder versus Hellenius fight. I'm a Wilder fan, but that fight has no business being $80, in my opinion. If you charge $80 for that fight, that's crazy to me. Canelo Alvarez versus Caleb Plant. To me, that was overcharged, in my opinion. That was like $80, I believe. So if you see how they've been moving, it was another fight too. You mentioned that, I forgot.
You got Thurman and Barrios.
Thurman and Barrios that happened earlier this year that shouldn't have been on pay-per-view, and that was like $65. So you look at how
and Andy and Ortiz.
And Andy Ortiz, they just happened recently. That it was $65. It's another fight that shouldn't have been on pay-per-view. If you look at how PBC been moving, they've been moving like, I don't know if they're overpaying fighters and have to get the money some way, or are they looking for a higher overhead? So they charging pay-per-view to get the higher overhead for themselves. We know PBC fighters are paid well, but it's never been this never had this problem at all. So what do you think? You think that got something to do with it, or?
Yeah, I think that has something to play. It's giving them a problem, because I believe that COVID threw them off, and they still haven't recovered yet. Yeah. And I think that the fighters are used to being paid on PBC pretty well. I mean, the reason why I say that, because you never hear anybody come out and really say that PBC is not paying them, or that they want to go to another promotional company. Pretty much everybody that seems to be with PBC claim the back money is good. They claim it is. Ain't nobody really complain. I think it's one fight I think heard come out that I hear them really complain.
I think Ronan the only person I heard complain about it, but he complained not getting enough. Yeah.
So I can't really take Ronan. Ronan got a Pacquiao fight. So I mean that guy can't complain. But so it seems like they pay their fighters very well, and it's caught up to them. And now I think they want these fighters to bet on themselves and pay them all on the back end, or not upfront money, or finding sponsorships through pay-per-view events rather than pay them guaranteed money, because like you said, I don't think the funding is there to pay them guaranteed money. So now it's short, and they're trying to find, I guess, creative ways to pay these fighters, and fighters don't really want to go on a sponsorship, or they want to see their guaranteed money. That they get punched in the head, so they want to see, what am I going to get up front? I understand the back end, if we get a certain amount of pay-per-view sales, or if the fight is this successful, I can get this much money on the back end, but what can you promise me up front? And I think right now the biggest problem is PBC is not willing to take a lot of risks as far as trying to lose any more money.
Yeah, I agree with that. That could be the reason. It could be that. But the reason why I really can't full-heartedly agree with that, they paid Canelo Alvarez $100 million for 3 fights this year. So they knew that was going to be a loss of money. And they pretty much.
But I will say, Canelo was playing with 800,000 pay-per-views. People forget that. That was 800,000 pay-per-views. So they might have came out even on that, made their money back. I don't know if anybody else that can make those kind of numbers except for Spence and Crawford, maybe, and that's gonna be close. And Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis, they're the only two fights I think that might can come close to 800,000 pay-per-views.
Joshua
and Wilder.
Yeah.
That might can make it. I'm still interested in it. I don't know what nobody. I still think it's a big fight. I wish they do make that fight.
Yeah, but this is why I prefer to place the blame on the businessman. Me coming from, I'm a boxer myself. I boxed in my leisure time back in my youth days. So to me, in my opinion, a boxer deserves whatever he asking for to get in the fight. If it's not some asinine deal like Fury did recently where he asked for $500 million, if it ain't some shit like you asked for $500 million or some shit like that, then you, in my opinion, if you got the numbers that back up what you want, you should get it. It shouldn't be no argument. So I'm always going to take the fighter side. So I'm a little biased when it comes to that. But in knowing what we do know for a fact when it comes to this fight, because we don't know nothing, to be honest, as fans, we don't know shit when it comes to the money. This is why I like talking about the money. But we really don't know shit. But as far as what we do know is how PBC been moving when it comes to their market. That we can critique that, and we can put two and two together and come with an assumption that says that, you know, it's two things. You know what I'm saying? The Crawford fan in me, without trying to be too fanboyish, the Crawford fan in me would say, Al Hammond and them are scared to put Spence in with Crawford. They're scared of this possible loss he could take, and scared that it's not a big enough fight for him to take that loss. That's what the fanboy in me would say. But the common sense in me would say that they don't want to pay Crawford Spence money. They don't want to pay him close to paying Spence money because that dips into their overhead profit. That dips into their pockets a little bit. If their market has been all year 800,000 and 600,000, then they can assume that this fight going to be less than $1 million. It's going to be around 8 to 750, what they probably estimated. So, do you really want to pay, or can you pay? Let's be honest, they be paying them Canelo Alvarez money. The same money they paid Canelo Alvarez is what they would have to pay these two fighters. Can they do that twice in 1 year? While at the same time having these other low-selling pay-per-view events they've been having all year?
I don't know why they could. I mean, if Canelo made you money, why can't you make money on Spence Crawford? You know what I'm saying? Like you said, even though Canelo fight made 800,000 and it seems like it worked out for him, why can't you bet on your own fight? You bet on the outside man. You bet on Canelo. Bet on Spence. Bet on Spence and bet on Crawford. That Spence is your guy. That's your main guy now. You know, him and Wilder and Tank. That's your three main fighters with PBC. So if that's your top guy, bet on him. I mean, for me, if that's the case, like I said, we're doing a lot of assuming. If that's the case, I would feel some kind of way of Spence. Because I'm saying, you gave Canelo $40 million, $40 million. You bet on him. I'm Spence. Bet on me that me and Crawford can do that. You know, this is the biggest fight in boxing, so that is alarming to me. And also the first comment you made, like you said, PBC is probably a little afraid of Spence losing because he is one of their top fighters. And if the company's already in trouble, they can't afford for Spence to lose any value right now. It's a dangerous game they playing. I mean, don't get me wrong. A lot of people jump on PBC, but all the promotional companies are doing that. I wish they all was. I wish it was. I hate to say, I wish it was like UFC, but they still got paid like they get paid now. But I wish it was just one promotional banner, and everybody could just not have to work with different promotional banners and different companies. Because, like you said, Golden Boy's gonna protect Garcia and Ortiz as long as he can. Top Rank is gonna protect Shakur Stevenson and Lomachenko and Kambosos. Look what happened with Kambosos. They made Devin Haney signed a slave deal of all slave deals to make that fight happen. He had to make a 3-fight deal. He got to beat Kambosos twice in Australia and beat Lomachenko after that fight. So they all doing it, but it's shitty. It sucks as being a boxing fan that we have to keep pitting up with this because the sport is getting killed. You know, so people are getting tired of casuals and not gonna sit around and wait for us to have our little spats and go back and forth about this fight and that fighter. Like I said, I walk in the barbershop and I had casuals getting excited about the Spence and Crawford fight. Then this shit come out today. So what you think the casuals doing? College football come on this weekend. NFL come on Sunday. NBA is coming on next month. Fuck boxing. So I hope they just realize if they keep playing this game, boxing is gonna suffer even more and it's gonna be harder to even sell fights in the future.
I agree with you, man. I just hope they're not trying to do the I call it the Bob Arum move. I just hope they ain't trying to do the Bob Arum move and try to age out Crawford. They hoping. In my opinion, I said this early when I told you on one of the episodes back in the day. I told you I think that they were using Sean Porter as a gauge to see did Terrence Crawford get older a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Did he get a little older overnight? Did he acclimate to the weight? Because he wasn't new to 147 then, but he was newer than everybody else at 147. So they wanted to see, test him out, see can he handle that 147 pressure, and was he going to get old overnight? I think Terrence Crawford kind of, the way, even though they fight in a controversial manner, the way the fight itself took place and how the fight was going, I just don't think, man, they're 100% confident in Spence. But in closing, I would push back a little bit and say they shouldn't fear a loss from Spence and saying he's going to quote unquote lose market value. Because Wilder lost to Fury twice. I don't see him losing the market value. If you can put him on pay-per-view now for $80. Did Wilder lose market value with two back-to-back knockout losses to Fury? I don't think so. They have a rematch clause. So say if Spence does lose, how you gonna lose marketability when your very next fight is a get-back fight? The rematch will do better than the first one, in my opinion. Especially if it's a tough, hard-nosed fight. So, in my opinion, none of these fighters will lose quote-unquote marketability as long as the fight is close. You know what I'm saying? As long as the fight's entertaining, it's what we expect them to be. The longer they wait, the older these fighters get. Like we talked about earlier, if an injury happens, they postpone it again, or anything can happen that messes the fight up and kind of give us that Pacquiao versus Mayweather taste in our mouth at the end of it. Then boxing loses at the end of the day, in my opinion. And then what comes to your point when it comes to playing the game too much and these promotional companies playing the game and it's ruining the sport. But you got anything else you want to add to this topic, man? Yeah, most definitely, man. But with that being said, man, this is of course your favorite channel, man, CTB. It's your Chin Tuck Boxing. I'm your boy Jay Slay. Say peace to him, man.
All right, everybody. Please hit the sub button to get us to 1,000. Like, subscribe, notification button. Prayers out to everybody that's suffering from the hurricane, man. Stay safe, stay in the house. Also, man, continue to follow us. We're gonna give y'all plenty of content. You know why? Because we love boxing and you love boxing. But most of all, God, peace, and love, and we out of here. Take care.